Now let's skip all the way to Australia. We were here at this beautiful museum and it had this, I guess these wall or columns of yellow lights that looked really cool. So what did I do? I set my exposure background first, right? I didn't want to blow out those highlights in those beautiful columns. I wanted to look just right according to my taste. And so I set my exposure, I'm in manual, for those background lights. My subject is therefore dark because there's no light on it. I bring my video light through an umbrella onto my subject, and generally where the nose is pointed with the subject, that's where the light is, because you can see the shadow on the other side. So you see highlight here, shadow here, and I'm repositioning that light to give me that highlight and shadow. And so when that light's coming from above, you can see shape. And so you can look at her legs, and that also has highlight and shadow too, creating shape for your subject, and it just looks more pleasing that way. I'm back in Paris and we're at the Louvre. I have this beautiful couple there, and it looks like they're being lit by the light that they're posing around. But actually, that light was dead. I guess the light went out on it and it was completely dark there. So what did I do? I came in here, I exposed for my background first, right? I'm using a 16 to 35 lens f4 here. So most likely I'm gonna be probably about 1600 ISO, maybe more because I have to shoot at f4. Then my subject is dark. The Louvre looks like, if I were to take a picture without the light, the Louvre and the background buildings and the sky looks absolutely beautiful. This is the perfect time to shoot. Right when that sun starts to go down, you're still gonna see some beautiful blue in the sky. As soon as the sun sets, you got about 10 minutes of beautiful blue sky. So now they're dark. I bring in my video light on a long light pull so I can what? Have that light down on my subjects, okay? And their nose is towards that light, okay? And so I bring in that light and I can adjust that light to expose perfectly so they're not too bright or not too dark. And I just bring that light in and I have my background exposure locked in. Let's go to New York City. So we went all the way on the Brooklyn side so we can have the Empire State Building in the background. What did I do? I set my exposure for the background first to make the Empire State Building look gorgeous. Those New York City lights behind them look exactly the way I want it, okay? Locked it in on my manual exposure. I pose my subjects. They are dark, right? Because this is nighttime. There's absolutely no light on them. But I take my video light through an umbrella on a stand and I put it above them, right at them, and all I do is I adjust my light to match. I typically like my subjects to be a little bit brighter than my background. So why? Because your eye goes to what's brightest and what's sharpest. And so if I underexpose my background just a little bit, then when I light my subjects, they will be brighter than the background, but they will not be overexposed. So do you understand that concept? If I make my background darker, I can expose my subjects correctly without overblowing the highlights, and they will look brighter than my background and pop out a little bit more. Here's a situation where we're in the subway and there's actually light there. I just needed, so what it is, I did the same principle. I set up my camera, what looks great, right? I get the exposure where I can see everything in the subway here, but my subjects are a little bit dark. So what do? I shine a little bit of video light on my subjects. It looks soft though. How did I do it? Do you think I had enough room to go into the subway and open up my umbrella on the subway and use it? No, you can't do that. So I just had a little video light. So what did I do? I fired the video light up at the ceiling so it would come down, it would go up and come down and become bigger light when it's reflected. So when you reflect your light off of a wall, it gets bigger. Your light comes out of your light source like this and it comes out. It hits the ceiling and then it comes back down even bigger. And that's how you get soft light. So that's what I did in this situation. It looks like very, very, very soft light. It's just reflected light using the ceiling of the subway. I'm matching sort of the exposure of the background to the foreground. Maybe I made it a little bit darker so they will pop out just a bit, but it looks very natural. Let's do an exercise. Now, this is a very important exercise that you have to master before we go on. If you don't master this technique, you can't move forward. You're going to be completely lost. And that is setting your background first. Okay? So what do? First, put your camera in manual mode. Find a background that has some sort of lights in it or something that looks interesting. It could be street lights, it could be buildings, it could be a skyline. I don't know. Wherever you find lights, that is a perfect place to have in your background. Expose for that background to your taste, okay? I'm making a suggestion that you make that background slightly darker. And the reason is when you light your subject at the correct exposure, your subject is going to be brighter than your background. So in general, I'm just going to say this in general, I make my background a little bit darker in my scene so my subject can pop off. Then you got to diffuse your light, whatever light source you put on it, whether you're using an umbrella or you're using a softbox. You need to get that light bigger. You need to get that light as close as possible to your subject. And then you need to learn how to adjust the strength of that light, or you need to learn how to adjust your ISO. Everything goes according to your background first, okay? So that's the important thing. Because if you adjust your background and then you move up your ISO, your background's going to be overexposed. You have to adjust your background first and then put light on your subject. Now, the key, what throws everything off, if you put your subject in a bright area that's a lot brighter than your background, then this technique won't work. Because when you set your background, your subject is going to be too bright at this point. So a lot of times I try to bring my subject actually in a darker area because I want to add the light. I don't want my environment to add the light. I want to control the light so I can position it. I can put it, the shadows, and place them where I want them to be. This is the exercise that you must master. Go out and do that and practice setting your background first. And when you've mastered that, come back because I've got more amazing techniques for you to use to create some wow images.